The Blue Jays are coming off a series win in Minnesota, but there's still plenty of warts with John Schneider's ball club. Hey, everyone, welcome into another SUN Sports Roundtable. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons and Toronto Sun Blue Jays beat writer Rob Longley. And guys, the Blue Jays picked up their first series win in 2 weeks, taking 2 of 3 from the Twins, but it's still been a messy May, especially for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Steve, who is 7 for his last 40 right now. What is your level of concern for the struggling Blue Jays slugger?
Level of concern is depending on what you think or want Vladimir Guerrero to be. If you think he's going to be the guy from 2 years ago who had the greatest offensive season in Blue Jays history, then you'll have great concern. If you think he's going to be basically what he was last season, that's pretty close to what he is this season, even though he's in a slump right now. So I think, he is not that. He's not Ronald Acuna Jr. He's not Soto. We thought he was going to be one of those elite guys. At this point in time, he's not that.
My level of concern is much higher than yours, Steve. I actually just filed a column on him and made my point, which we'll see on TorontoSun.com later in the day. But in the last 19 games, he's hit 1 home run, and that came off a batting practice pitcher, essentially, a position player. It's the worst stretch of his career in terms of home run hitting. In his rookie season, he did go a 19-game stretch, but that was back in 2019. He's got 8 home runs this season, which has him on pace for 24, which would be by far the lightest home run hitting season in his career. To me, over this miserable stretch that he's been on, and granted, as you mentioned, it is a slump right now, he's starting to look lost at the plate. He's chasing pitches like his old man did, and pitchers don't feel that they have to go into the zone on him. And we saw in the series in Minnesota on the weekend, you could see some of that frustration building. He's a slugger that is lacking in confidence right now, and that's a dangerous thing for a guy who expects much more out of himself and whose team expects much more out of him.
A slugger who's lacking slugging, who's not hitting the ball to the fence or almost over the fence or into the gaps or the kind of things that you would expect the ball to come off his bat at such extreme speed. And I think, I'm starting to really get concerned, big picture, that he's not the guy you build around for your entire future. And he's not your $30 million investment kind of guy. And there's a lot of thinking that has to be done here by Blue Jays management about what the future is and how they approach that.
To your point, Stephen, I agree with you 100% on that. It's, very soon they're going to have to start looking how they're going to spend all that big money over the next few years. And more, it looks like you prioritize Bo Bichette over Vlad Guerrero Jr. if you don't think that you can keep both of them. And right now, it's hard to justify making the case for a long-term big money deal for Vlad Guerrero Jr. Small sample size, but he didn't have a really strong season in 2022 either. So very interesting times and a very high level of concern, I would think, for what Vlad Guerrero Jr. is doing at the plate.
Well, Rob, there's plenty of players struggling outside of Vladdy Jr. at the moment, but there's got to be some silver linings. What are some bright spots with this Jays team?
I guess probably there's 2 or 3, I suppose, because the team has been doing some things well. The obvious one is Bo Bichette, who is the best hitter in the American League and will lead the league and is leading the league in hits, just as he did the last 2 seasons. But he seems to be evolving as a hitter. I mean, it's almost like he can hit anything on the plate now. He can hit it to all parts of the field. He's hitting for more power. He's got 11 home runs, which leads the Blue Jays and has been very, very impressive. Obviously, Jose Barrios, the starting pitcher, is starting to come around, and I think that's a big plus for the team. And the one that recently has stood out to me is Nate Pearson out of the bullpen. I give this guy a lot of credit for sort of reinventing himself and embracing the role of a reliever. And he's earned the trust of management and the coaching staff to the point where we saw him Friday go in the 8th inning as a setup man for Jordan Romano. And not everyone would have seen that happening with Nate Pearson in spring training and through his struggles over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But if he can continue on that track and be a pure setup guy out of that bullpen, all of a sudden the Toronto Blue Jays relieving core is that much stronger.
Well, I'm going to start with the best player on the Blue Jays, and Rob mentioned him. That's Bo Bichette. I used to be concerned watching him play shortstop. I'm not nearly as concerned this season, despite the fact that they're not shifting like they were in the past. I'm not concerned with how he's played. The occasional throw is off, but I think he's been exceptional in the field and better than that at the plate. He's one of the premier players in the American League right now. And the Jays are fortunate also to have one of the premier starting pitchers in the American League in Kevin Gausman. And I'm going to pull an analogy from the past. Kevin Gausman reminds me of Dave Stieb. And by that, when you looked at Dave Stieb's record at the end of most seasons, didn't have as many wins as you thought he should have. Didn't have the Cy Young sort of push that you thought he should have. But every start, he made it difficult for the other team. And I think Gausman has been that way for the Jays. I think for maybe one or two starts, he hasn't been. I think he's been exceptional. I think Bichette has been exceptional. And if they don't have those two guys, I'm going to say they're last place now, they'd be a whole lot worse off than they are right now.
So there you have it. There are still some things to like about this Blue Jays team, but let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. For Steve Simmons and Rob Longley, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on another SUN Sports Roundtable.